Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Slinging Seeds. This is your host, Kyle Evans. This is my co-host, Doug Adams, and we have a very special guest today, Kyle Weldon. He's a state director for PBR. Doug, would you go ahead and give us a little bit more about our special guest here?
Yeah, so, Kyle obviously had a career at Mason, went on to Miami, played there, coached there, and obviously won a state championship at Mason this year, so he's got to step up on both of us in high school baseball, and thanks for coming on, Kyle.
Man, excited to be here. Really excited to be here.
So I guess, we'll just start with it, right? You obviously had a great playing career. You were highly ranked, big-time hitter, all those fun things, right? I think you hit, over 300 at Miami, right, if I recall correctly?
I did, yeah. I don't think there were too many rankings back in those days. I know Perfect Game did one, but, PBR was just getting started back then. I don't think it was in Ohio yet. So, but, yeah, played at Miami. It was a good time. I enjoyed my experience there quite a bit, met a lot of great people and guys that are still in my life and have been a part of my career in some way.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. So one of the things I think we'll just get right into it because we have a ton of high school kids who watch this and listen on the Androids. So how did the PBR thing come about when Jordan went on to Wright State? Can you kind of give us that backstory?
I knew Jordan quite well just over the years talking about players from Mason and Alpha, the facility down there, and I had gotten a call. J.D. Heilman was kind of enlisted to help the search party for his replacement. Jordan was going to be taking a job at Wright State, and J.D. asked if I was interested in doing it, so he put my name in and started the interview process with Chris Valentine over a few weeks process there, and it was a great fit for what I want to do and the way I want to impact baseball in Ohio, and Chris thought it was a good fit too. So.
Yeah, I've known Chris for a very, very long time. I think the first time I ever coached against Chris, he was coaching a team called the Dublin Green Sox. Way back in the day at Action, back when the outfield used to have rocks and stuff in it.
Yeah.
It was crazy. That was when it first opened at Action Sports. So, obviously Chris is outstanding. What's it been like to work with Chris now that you're on the other side?
Yeah, he's a great dude. Like, he really cares about the state of Ohio and how we run prep baseball in the state of Ohio, and just making sure it's always player focused. Right, and make sure the players are getting everything out of it that they should be, and that they're accurately represented. And that was a huge piece of me even taking the job, is the way Chris approached it and just his mentality. I don't think I would have been so eager if it was somebody else running Prep Ohio. Like, he really made a difference and an impact in me saying yes to doing the job. He does a great job. Good human being.
Well, as far as your time there, it seems you're a guy who wears a lot of hats, with Alpha, with Mason, and now PBR. I see that last year you did a lot of coverage on high school with Alex and Pete. Can you kind of tell us about your guys, your team?
Yeah, man. So Alex is with corporate now, so he's with PBR National, which sucks because he's an awesome dude, and I loved working with him every day. It's great for him. It's great for National.
Yeah.
Sucks for me personally because I don't get to hang out with him anymore as much as I used to. But he's a dude, and a huge reason why the presence of prep baseball grew so much so fast in Ohio is because some of the work he was doing on the social media side. He's obviously super creative, but he's also very smart in how those posts and get structured and how they coordinate with events and things like that. He's very good at his job, and that's why National took him. And then Pete's been like my right hand all the way through this thing. Like, doing all those events and coming in at the time that I did, which was January last year, like right before the Winter Showcase Sprint. If Pete wasn't a part of that, I would have been like underwater. just trying to figure out how those events run and making sure people were in the right spot at the right time. Pete does a great job at that, and he's super visible and present. He gets out there and he sees guys, goes and watches games, talks to coaches. He does a great job of building his network and expanding our reach in Ohio, and just making sure that we've got good information coming in from everywhere in the state and not just little pockets.
Oh yeah, I know. I love Pete. He came out there to the Massillon and Fairmont game last year. I think you were in Nashville at the time, and he was super humble, great guy to be around. Really informative. Got a lot of good video. I mean, great. So yeah.
No, I've always loved my conversations with Pete. He came out and watched us in the summer at some school up there. I don't know. We were at NEO.
Yeah.
And you guys came out. He came out and watched us play. Colton Mullenkamp pitched, and we beat one of the premier teams. It was a really good game. A lot of prospects on both sides, and he came out, and he's a phenomenal guy. I love having conversations with him.
He grinds, man. He's a grinder. He's a baseball guy, like, through and through. And that's why we get along so well, because we both like to get out there and work, and he does a great job.
Oh yeah, and I can't leave Stefanelli out either. I love the Stefanelli brothers. I actually really know Adam, but meeting Alex and getting to know Alex, that was great too.
Well, I loved Alex because, I mean, he would always come in for our scout day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He would always show up. And
huge vibes guy.
Oh, yeah.
It makes it, obviously the scout days are something that we've been doing since we were in the Sinclair Fieldhouse, I don't know, 2020 maybe. It's been a long time, 19 maybe before that. I remember like Austin Schroeder and Grant Harris and those guys doing it way back in the day. So, I mean, a little bit about Scout Days. Let's go into that a little bit because, obviously, I think as an organization for us, it's huge for you guys to come in and see our players. I also think it's nice where they get to be in an area where they're comfortable 100%. So you see the best version of them. Tell us a little bit about what goes into the Scout Day. How do you guys make the schedule? I mean, how do you, all those fun things?
The scheduling falls mostly on Luke Wolford, who's our operations guy. He gets in contact with all the orgs in the fall, so I think he started that in like September, October, started making those calls. And he just lays it out and tries to make sure that we're not like triple booked in 3 different parts of the state on the same day. We'll go up to like 2, so we're in a split squad where I'm at one event and Pete or somebody else is running another one. But that's really kind of the max that we'll do is 2 at the same time. Before the event, I always give a shout to the whoever runs the organization, just kind of catch up on their players and make sure that we know what we're looking for going in. Anybody that we need to pay particular attention to, maybe somebody that hasn't been reflected in the rankings the right way, and we want to make sure we get that right the next time around. Make sure that we know who the new guys are, who's coming into the organization, who's leaving, what is the organization going to look like for that year, and then we just make sure we got all our bazillion tech things lined up and ready to go. Make sure rosters are updated and our blast roster, our TrackMan roster, all that stuff's clean, and then we come in and rock it out with you guys.
No, that's awesome. I always feel bad for Luke because I'm probably the biggest pain in the tail in the state because I want it done. I want it to be a certain way. You know what I mean?
I understand that.
But I've always felt like our attendance has always been as high as anyone.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So I've always been like, no, it's got to be this day. I have to have this person here.
Yeah, the atmosphere when you walk in here for your guys' Scout Day is electric. I mean, the music's up, the guys are flying around, everybody's yelling.
Oh yeah,
guys are so fired up. It was quite fun last year. I'm looking forward to it again.
It was a blast. I had a great time. And seeing all the tech that you guys use, it was eye-opening. It was crazy. Tell us kind of a little bit about, how much you guys work with like Blast Sensor, TrackMan, how much you enjoy that, or how useful it is to your job.
That's been the easiest part for me coming in, just because I had so much experience
with Alpha and stuff
before with Alpha and how much we use at Mason. So coming into prep, that was the least of my worries, was being able to handle the tech. But it's super helpful to have progress markers and things that can track progress and also help you understand like what an athlete's capable of, where low-hanging fruit might be, or different ways that this person performs based on what their body's doing, what their outputs are, or how they move. We're adding some jump testing this year through our new partner Vald. So Vald is coming in, and they're the new partner for us on the 60 side of things. So when the sensors to timing gates to run the 60s, and then we're doing jump mat stuff.
Wow.
So we'll have 2 different jump tests this year that guys will be doing in the gym to basically track explosiveness and vertical jump is very closely tied to, what your max bat speed or your max velo might be.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
For sure we do a lot of
capacity
it.
for
Yeah.
force production. So it'll be a good indicator and a good new metric that we put on guys' profiles to kind of take the insights that people can glean from their profile to a new level, and give them a little bit more about the athlete, not just the baseball player.
Yeah, no, we've always been huge in verticals here, grip testing.
Yep.
And then
100%.
broad jumps is
Yep.
something we do a lot of. Obviously, Juan really believes in broad jumps. It's kind of a staple in his program. So that makes all the sense in the world. So obviously, you're going out, you're getting all this data. I think the one job that I would never trade with you for the world is, which sounds fun in theory, is the rankings, right? That sounds like yikes. You know what I mean? So tell us a little bit about what it takes to go in to do those rankings. I mean, ranking every kid in the state's brutal. I know how much time you spend on it, so I do appreciate that part, how much work you put into it to make sure they're as right as they can be. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Jordan and I joke all the time, like you could put, 100 coaches in a room and you might come out with 100 different rankings. Like there's just no perfect way to do it. But I believe we get as close as we can just because of how much we see guys. And we see guys a lot, and we try to get out there and be as present as we can be so that we're getting as much information as we can. Not just from our staff, but the relationships that we try to develop with summer teams, high school coaches, college coaches, pro scouts, guys that are seeing these guys on a consistent basis as well, to try to get a feel for, okay, where does this guy possibly slot? What do the tools say? What does the in-game performance say? What does the makeup say? What's this kid like at home? What's he like in the facility? So we do a ton of background work leading up to rankings, just calls with coaches and different organizations to try to get a feel for guys. It's fun putting them together, and then you hit send, and you just wait. Just wait for the inbox to start flooding up. I've got my phone on the table, and it's just ding, 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 ding with questions or comments. It's part of it. I understand some kids and some parents and people in general take it very seriously on how the rankings are done, which is why we put so much into it to try to make it as right as we can make it, because we know it does matter to some people. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like you ask any college coach, the rankings for them are more of an identification and less of a, hey, this kid is ranked, 70th, and I want top 10 guys. I'm only going to recruit. That's not how, they're not going out and just looking at those guys. They're trying to figure out, okay, who needs to be on my watch list? Who do I need to be aware of? And then they're going to go and make their own evaluation of the player. And I try to keep that in mind when I'm doing the rankings, so that I think I would drive myself crazy if the end all be all was the rankings and it was going to tank somebody's career if I don't rank them in the right spot. Like that's definitely not the implication of the rankings, but it is. It's a good reflection of how the person's doing, how much buzz is around them, what their tools say they're going to be capable of doing, what their projection looks like. We try to do the best we can with it.
I think you guys do a great job. You guys work really hard, especially the amount of times we see you guys like in here and all the other the Peace Scout days that you guys do.
Oh yeah, one of the things I've always appreciated with you and Jordan as well, because Jordan and I have a phenomenal relationship and have for a long time. Obviously, it was him that linked us up when you were taking over, and we went and had lunch and got to know each other a little better, because I knew who you were, but I didn't know you. You know what I mean? You've always been honest. This kid, this kid, this. So when a parent asks, hopefully they're not reaching out to you, but when they ask, I can be like, it's this.
Yeah.
Like, we've told you this is important. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's this. So I've always really appreciated how honest and upfront you are about it and all that stuff. It was also cool to see, I think 2 or 3 of our guys really spiked in the 26 rankings this year, right? And I think one of them definitely deserved to. So that was great to see as well. So that's outstanding. So I really just appreciate how you do the process. I think you do a phenomenal job with it.
It's been a learning experience for sure. That's when I first took the job. J.D. Howman, who did the job before Jordan was scouting director, said, "Hey, you're gonna love this gig. You're gonna hate rankings." He's like, "Just do it as best you can. Get it right to what you think is right, and then let the aftermath be the aftermath. Talk to everyone that needs to be talked to. Get a better understanding why there might be disagreements about where guys are ranked. Take it with." Approach it like, hey,
I want to make sure that I investigate it and really evaluate this player better if there is somebody that has a massive disagreement about where he's ranked, just so that I can better understand and have a better case if I do think that's exactly where he should be ranked, and I don't want to move him, have a reason why, and make sure that you can defend it. And after that, there's not much else you can do, you know.
I have a question, and I hope it kind of ties in well. So as far you're with Mason in the spring, and you get to see a lot. Last year, you guys had a game with Moeller at Prasco, great game. Can you tell us kind of how the rankings and these high-ranked players, when they get on the field with each other, how that competitiveness just sits in?
Yeah, it's really cool to see, you know, when the best players in the state line up against each other. And I'm not saying, you know, Mason's got all the best players in Moeller.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's good players everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But to see a high concentration of them, I mean, Moeller has a high concentration of highly ranked players, good players, guys that are going to go play Division I baseball. So anytime you get to watch a team like that, you're seeing a lot of those dudes at the same time, and it's really easy to evaluate them against each other. And then, you know, we had, you know, Jake Hanley and Alex Kelling and some other highly ranked guys on our team as well. So it was cool to see those guys compete and see where they stack up against each other. Who's got that, you know, that little bit of FU in them to come into a situation like that and perform. It's exciting for sure.
That game was definitely exciting.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen from a high school baseball scene. There were people sprinting from the gate when they let the people into the gates to get a seat behind home plate. I was like, I've never seen anything.
You didn't have this much to see, but where I was sitting, you could see kids in that little fenced area by the bushes out there in the outfield in Prasco, just like standing there watching the game. It was.
I don't know what the exact number is. They said it was somewhere between like 3,000 and 5,000 people, like to watch a mid-season high school game. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty cool that the state of Ohio and Cincinnati in general, but there's obviously a lot of really passionate baseball fans all around the state. It was cool to see like a culmination of, you know, a pretty intense rivalry. I mean, the guys on Mason's team and the guys on Moore's team, they talk a lot between each other, and they have that rivalry together. So it was cool to see them get on the field together in front of a lot of people and duke it out. Obviously, it didn't go the way we wanted it to that night. But if we were going to get to win one of the two games we played against them, I'll take the second one.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. So you talked about, you know, the end game. So that's the other question I have as far as my last question on the rankings. So when you're making the rankings, I would love for parents to understand this. How do you balance the in-game, what you see, versus, man, this kid hits the ball 110, he runs 6.5, he throws it 98, whatever those numbers are, right? How do you balance those two things?
I think there's a lot of ways to hit a ball 100 miles per hour. A lot of ways that a person can do that. Not every way's created equal, and so I have to take that into account when I watch the swing. And I think my background in hitting has helped me kind of decipher, you know, which 100 is going to translate better. And then when you go and watch them, who are they playing against? And how well are they doing against that competition? I think that's ultimately like what, from an in-game standpoint, separates a hitter is how well they perform against great arms. You know, they're probably not going to see an arm that they'll see in college, but maybe like 3 or 4 times a year. In the spring season, you might see like let's say you're getting recruited by Ohio, and you're going to go play in the MAC. Well, how many MAC arms are you going to see in the course of a spring season?
Very true.
1, 3, 2, 3, depends on what division you're playing. So it's hard to get a perfect projection of how this hitter is going to perform once he gets to that level. But you're really relying on coach's feedback on how well this kid performed against the best arms they saw all summer, because you're not at every game. Right. So you're hoping that the coach that you're talking to is giving you a super honest evaluation about how the kids performed against the best arms that they've seen. The in-game part is really important, and I put a lot of stock in how guys perform on the field.
Okay, so I guess my next question is, like I said, we have a ton of high school kids that watch this. What would be your advice to that high school kid who's trying to develop? What should his schedule look like throughout the off season?
That's going to be different for different guys. You know, we got multi-sport guys that their schedule is not going to look like somebody who's only focusing on baseball. You got guys that need to make huge jumps. You got guys that need to make minor jumps. I think my personal experience and how I approached it is going to be a lot different from other people, right? Like, I lived in the cage. Some guys aren't going to live in the cage. I do think if you're not playing another sport, a 3 to 5 day schedule is probably appropriate through the winter months. If you are playing another sport, you're trying to do as much to maintain what you've got, and then the early part of the winter, when basketball's done and you're getting into baseball, you're pounding it pretty hard. I think it's just so different based on who the athlete is. But you should be lifting a lot. You should be eating a lot. You should be training a lot. I'll just say a lot.
Yeah.
Especially with how competitive it's gotten now. Like, with the change in the roster, and I don't want to jump too far ahead in this conversation, but with the change in the rosters and what's happening at the highest level of Division I baseball and how that's trickling down, it's getting more competitive everywhere. Not just in Division I, but that's all trickling down as well. So physicality is super important. Being able to get as close to your man body as you can, as fast as you can, is important in the recruiting process now, because guys don't have 2 years to let you come in and hang out and hit the weights. You know, they need guys that are going to be depth pieces behind. You know, they're an injury or two away on a 34-man roster from needing somebody to step in and play. They can't bring you in to just sit around for 2 years and lift, right? So you got to get that done early and get as close as you can to your man body.
No, I think your insight is very valuable to our audience. I mean, you're the one who
obviously a big opinion, right? So I mean, you have a huge opinion, and obviously your opinion carries a lot of weight with coaches, and it should. You've earned that. Yeah. So I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. You know, what changes would you love to hit first when we talk about the Division I recruiting game now? Because there's so many. Where would you like to start with that conversation, so that way we can just go where you want to go?
I think just understanding the timing of everything. Right, like the timing's slid back quite a bit. We were talking before we started recording just about the changes and where you can slot guys now. Right, Division I recruiting process has slowed down from what it was even a year ago, which slows everything else down too. So it can get a little confusing for players on figuring out where they slot with guys. So I think just understanding that things are moving a little bit slower. Guys are recruiting more out of the portal. They're recruiting more out of JUCO. The competitive, the spots at the Division I level are getting more competitive, especially for the high school guys. And there's going to be smaller signing classes. Now that's not true for every school. There's certainly schools that are still valuing the high school player a little bit more, and still trying to recruit bigger classes at the high school level than some others. But there are certainly a lot of schools that are shifting more to portal and shifting more to JUCO, mainly because the resume's there, right? And like, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but coaches moving around quite a bit and jobs not being secure all the time, it creates a little bit of pressure that, hey man, we got to make sure that we're right. And when you got a guy with coming out of the portal or coming out of JUCO that has a resume, you can be a little bit more sure about that player than the high school kid that you really like, but you're not quite positive yet how.
Yeah. We've had a couple other guests, Ben Zink and Juan both. I mean, they talk a lot about when you're getting recruited, the thought process has to start with who are you competing against in the recruiting world. So, I mean, to hear you kind of touch on that and reinforce that, it makes all the world of sense.
I don't want that to be like a doom and gloom. Like,
yeah,
if you're good, man, they're going to come and recruit you.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And at the Division I level, for sure, like, you'll know when you're being recruited. You will know. Like, they will be reaching out. People will be talking to you. The other ones, like, sometimes you got to do a little bit of reverse recruiting there, right? And you're talking about Division III, some Division IIs. Like, you got to reverse recruit those guys at times. The top Division IIs, you'll know when you're getting recruited by those guys as well. I think it's just having an understanding, having people in your corner that can help you through the process too. I think you guys do a fantastic job of placing players and keeping that conversation going with your players and making sure that nobody's just kind of out there like lost, having no idea what's going on.
We still have some players that are that way.
Yeah.
But it's usually the players who don't have that trust factor there, right? Or they don't come in the facility very often, and
right, they're not present enough to have that conversation.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Because if they're not in the building and if we're not having great conversations, I mean, I don't mean this to sound rude, but like, I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to drag you with me, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's one I always tell my players, you know, we're going to walk this cliff line and we're going to do everything we can, and I'm going to hold on to you. But if you go off the cliff, I'm not going with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got other guys I'm holding their hand trying to help them to the same point.
Well, you want to invest in players that are investing in themselves.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're not willing to put the investment in, why should anybody else?
100%.
Right? So,
Especially with the amount of money that's getting thrown around these days too, with NIL and everything else. You invest a lot in players, and I kind of want to put that on the record too. I was hoping we get our glimpses here and there of our kids still getting into these D1 programs, so they're not closing the door. Like I get it. So, but yeah, I wanted to kind of move into the importance for you in the state games. I got to watch a lot of that coverage this year, and it was amazing to watch. A lot of good stuff. Can you kind of give us a little bit of, I mean, maybe a background, but also what you like about it, what value it holds to you and PBR?
yeah, we're still working out exactly what the state games is going to look like this year. In years past, it's been more of like a north versus south, or split like that, north, central, south, and you kind of break guys up by region. I don't know what it's going to end up looking like this year, but it's a very good event for guys to get in there with the best players in the state and compete. The timing of it has been a little challenging for guys. Guys are getting shut down. They've reached their innings limit or whatever, so you're trying to find arms for that event. Guys are playing football, so we're trying to play with that a little bit and see if there's a better opportunity out there. But state games is a great tool for guys to get out there, and it's recruited. Coaches are out there. This year we did the last weekend of the recruiting period, so it was good for guys to get seen. Had a couple guys sign out of it, so that was huge. It's a good event. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an event that some of our guys are excited about. That the Future 50. Let's go into the future games a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Obviously, that's the event.
Yeah.
Guys
That's the one I
are
was-
working for that bid. Let's go into a little bit of the process that you go through to try to build that team that you take down there. And
It was difficult this year because it was my first year, right? So I'm seeing a lot of these guys for the first time. I'm already having an easier time, like thinking about how we're going to do it next year, just because I've seen a lot of the 27s already. So it's kind of good to have an idea of where guys are slotted and understand how they perform on the field, right? So I came in January, and in the 26 rankings there was a good amount of guys ranked in that 26 class already. So you're trying to figure out, okay, which of these guys has made a jump? Are any of these guys falling off? How much do I rely on the rankings the way that they are right now? So I had to get on the phone quite a bit. Get on the phone, find out about guys, make sure that we were accurately selecting the team. This year is going to be a little bit different for me just because I've seen the 27s so much that I'll have a better idea going in of exactly how these guys are going to look once they get down there. But it's a premier event. The goal is that every guy that goes to the future games is committed by the time future games rolls around the next summer. Like those guys are off the board. So you're making sure you're bringing down guys that might fit that mold. You also want to really represent your state well.
yeah, for sure.
And that's huge for me. Make sure that we accurately represent Ohio, and we go down there and we compete, right? And we've got some goals going down there. Make sure that we win games and show up.
Who are some top guys you got your eyes on right now?
In the 27 class,
Yes.
obviously, our top ranked guy, Devlin Daniels, an incredible player, two-way guy, switch hitting outfielder, runs a 6.5. He's 94, 95 from the outfield, 100 from both sides of the plate. He's just a freak athlete, but a really good baseball player. Devlin does a great job competing on the field. He wreaks havoc on the base paths. He puts together great at bats. He's a good player. Noah Getke's another one, just tooled out of his mind. The guy's hitting nukes backside in super sophomore games off right-handed sliders, like going with it. He runs, he can throw. He's a great athlete. Donnie Glosser, catcher behind the plate, another good 27. Nathan McDowell, Jaden Bekeet, a couple right-handed arms that are highly ranked guys for us that should show pretty well.
What's it like working with some of these guys and being in front of them?
It's interesting. You're trying to figure out what the personalities are like. Who's a little bit more outgoing, who's a little bit more reserved. So you kind of navigating that a little bit. They're all talented players, but they're baseball guys. It's no different than whoever's ranked 120th. Like they're just baseball
Right.
guys. And they're tooled up. They got some carrying tools that schools and pro teams are going to be super interested in. When you're talking about that top 5, top 10 style player. But they're just normal baseball guys, man.
Yeah, for sure. How often do you show up now? Because I mean, obviously, with all the work you do, I can't imagine it's very often. How often do you show up at a place and see a guy and go, "Okay, I didn't know that was that." You know what I mean? And somebody just floors you at this point with all the.
It happens for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I'm only a year in, right? So
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of these 26s that I haven't seen a ton of. You know, I've seen just about everybody that's participated in a PBR event.
Yeah.
But getting outside of PBR and seeing some guys that maybe haven't engaged with us as much, that's when it's usually like I'm really locked in. I'm making sure I understand, how this player moves. What's he like? How does he compete? But it does happen.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I went out to a few games this fall and saw some guys that I haven't seen that before. So
That's great to hear. So I guess the next thing would be, what's one thing that you think the high school prospects miss that you wish they focused on a little more that they don't think's a priority?
swing decisions from the hitting side, swing decisions. Just making sure that you're becoming a hitter and not a swinger. I think in today's age, it's really easy to get carried away by your metrics, and I understand why. I mean, I work for PBR. We post your exit velocity. I get it. We don't post your swing and miss rate or your chase rate. But when colleges are evaluated, how does this guy see spin? How does he hit spin? How does he work an at bat? Does he actually know how to hit, or is he just banging balls off guys he's more skilled than or more talented than? So I think that piece from a hitting side really important. I think Ohio in general, just our focus on defense isn't as great as, and it's most of that is opportunity, right? We're not outside every month of the year, so just making sure that your defensive work is matching your offensive work and that you're investing into it. And then on the pitching side, I get the chase for velocity. I understand it. I'm again posting your velocity on PBR, but pitchability, just being in command and having a presence on the mound, being that dude when you get up on the hill and not just trying to pop numbers and all that. So competing,
Yeah.
right? Like
Absolutely.
go compete. Whoever you're lined up against, beat them, go win. I think that gets lost sometimes in showcase style baseball and where we're at in 2024.
For sure.
Can you maybe hit on how important their high school baseball performance is compared to a lot of these guys? I've actually had conversations with some players where, well, I'm not worried about spring. I'm worried about summer. My numbers. I'm going to be going to PBR tournaments. I'm going to be doing this, and this showcases. I get it. But could you maybe hit on high school baseball and what you guys look at?
It's tough. It's tough for college evaluators to look at your high school stats and know what the heck they're looking at, because they don't. There's so much variation and skill level in the high school game, depending on what division it is, what conference or what team within the conference. There's a lot of variation. There's a huge gap between the best player and the worst player in high school, and all those players are playing against each other. So I think it's tough to take stats and take them at face value. I think for 90% of guys, it's a wash. Like, your stats you need them, it's good, but they're not going to help you tremendously, they're not going to hurt you tremendously. I think there's about 5% on the top side and about 5% on the bottom side where it's like, if you're a high performing player and then you go in the spring and you lay an egg and you hit 100, some light bulbs are going to start going off, some alarm bells are start going off with people like, okay, maybe I have a wrong read on this kid. Like, let me look into that a little bit more. And same thing on the other side. If you got a player that's just performing way above average, there's something there. That's not an accident when a player comes out and he's just head and shoulders above somebody. So it's just understanding who the person is, where they're playing. But from a high schooler's perspective, it absolutely matters to go out there and compete for your city or your school. It absolutely matters to get experience playing in a conference, playing for something, rather than, I don't want to say summer ball, you're only playing for yourself, because there's tournaments and there's all things like that. But
We agree with this.
you're out there to try to get recruited.
Yeah.
Right? You want to get
sure.
exposed to college coaches. You want people to see what you're about. And you want to try to earn a scholarship. Once you get past that and you get to college, though, you're in a conference. You're playing a schedule. You're playing in a league. They're keeping track of wins and losses, and you got to learn how to win as a team. I think the high school experience is incredible for that. I think the high school coaches in Ohio do a great job of making sure that they're preparing players for that. Just the way that Ohio's set up, I think, is great for that purpose.
I think that's why we love high school baseball so much. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you
It's-
selfishly, I love the competition piece. I don't get that in the summer, right? It's you coach it differently.
There's some fire there. There's more, a lot of times more fire there because it's you're usually playing people from around your area, right? Like you're in a conference with 8 or 10 teams that are all in the same 50-mile radius. So kids that play against each other or with each other in the summertime, they're now playing for their school and they get to go head to head with them, and you can hear it in the dugout. There's a little bit of a different fire in high school baseball than there is in the summertime at times.
Well, I know for me, working in here, and it's the same for you, and possibly the same for you at Alpha. But I work with a lot of guys in the GWAC, and I also coach in the GWAC, and I get to see a lot of our guys out there. And we play against them and whatnot. And then same thing. With you being in the NBC and playing outside of your conference, it's the same thing. How about you with Alpha? Do you get to see some of the guys that you train?
Yeah, we get to see guys. I mean, we got a lot of guys from the GMC, a bunch of GCL kids that train at Alpha, and it's really good to see those guys in the spring and see how the work that they do in the facility translates, but also like how do those people interact with their teammates on the field? Right. What does that person look like, in the dugout or on the field as opposed to in the facility? There can be a difference there that sometimes is good and sometimes is bad, but you're just trying to get a better feel for the players. It's cool to see them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I enjoy it in that sense. Just getting to see them in the competitive scene rather than the training world.
As far as conference goes, now we're headed to the SWBL, so that's going to change everything we do at Dayton Christian.
Oh yeah, that's a big.
Our 16 kids trying out is going to be a little tougher at the SWBL.
Now that we've transitioned
just need an
to
arm or
high
two.
school,
Just
yeah.
need an arm or two.
There you go.
And Daniel's coming.
Play good defense.
Right?
Play good defense.
I mean, Daniel's coming, so hopefully he'll be when Wickline and Halter leave. Daniel will be that next guy on the mound in the 27 class. So. I think he got up to 87 this fall, so I mean, hopefully he's
that's awesome.
As he continues to grow,
Yep.
he can be that guy when we jump into the SWBL. A little bit about high school. Obviously, like I said, we love high school baseball. I think it's the best, the best competition you can have in the state. And yes, the summer's fun and it's great to see all the top competition play together. But there's just something about competing for your city. So let's tell us a little bit about your situation with Mason and
Yeah, I grew up moved to Mason when I was 12, and then spent my whole middle school, high school days there. Played at Mason for Coach Ken Gray. He was there for 39 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lifer in Mason. Left after that and played at Miami. Played indie ball for a little bit, and then when I started coaching, and my first coaching job was down at IMG for my former college head coach, who was Dan Simons, took over the baseball at IMG. He brought me down for like 3 or 4 months just to coach in the summertime, run camps, do lessons, things like that. And then I was moving back to Cincinnati. So I came back, and I didn't have a relationship really with Kurt Bly. He was our JV coach on the time, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jerk, but I never played for him at Mason, so I didn't really and I never had him in class. So I didn't really have a relationship with him. The program was really chopped at that time when I was coming up through Mason. So if you were on the varsity, you really didn't see the JV coaching staff a whole lot or get to interact with them. So I didn't have a great relationship with Kurt, and I was actually interviewing to coach at St. X. I was going to go coach be the head JV coach at St. X, and Kurt somehow got wind of it and called me, said, "Hey, you're not going to St. X." He said, "You're coming to Mason." So all right, I'm coming to Mason, and then that's how our relationship started.
Okay.
So it was cool to get back to my alma mater, and that's been this will be my 10th year involved with the program. Spent a lot of time, with those guys, and obviously Alpha's about 5 minutes from the high school, so a lot of our Mason guys train with us too at Alpha, and that's been a really cohesive thing for our hitters to have a voice that is tracking between their private training and what they're getting at the high school. And a lot of times, whatever they're doing at Alpha, it just bleeds into what we do at Mason. And at Mason, we can do a little bit more. Hey, we're going to work on bunting, we're going to work on short game stuff. And then we're going to develop your tools at Alpha and try to get you stronger, faster, get you moving quicker. So that's been a good compliment for them. This year's going to look a little different for me at Mason, just going to be out seeing a bunch of games outside of ours, so I won't be in the dugout as much. But it's been a good experience.
Well, I love how much passion it shows that you have for Mason. The fact that you're still willing to do it with as busy as you are at PBR just says a lot about your character and who you are as a person and a coach.
It's really hard for me to get away from the dugout. That's my favorite part of life, is being in the dugout and competing and trying to go win a baseball game. Favorite part of life outside of my wife, of course, and my family.
Yeah.
For sure. No, we understood.
Yeah.
What's the order?
I told you, no.
God, family baseball.
God, family baseball. Just the problem is when the season starts, I mess the order up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll. I don't think I'll ever in my life be able to get away from that, truly, and be completely removed from a dugout in some way. But this year will look a little different.
It's so hard to get out of that dugout.
I can't. There's no way. Like I said, I love Dayton Christian, and you know what I mean. I'll never leave. I mean, I just love it. So until they tell me to go away.
I started my job, my coaching career. I started at Northridge in Dayton. Wasn't the greatest experience. I can be completely honest with you. Other than the amount of lives that you get to
Which is
impact
the
in the
incredible point.
dugout.
But now you're back.
Now being back at Fairmont,
where you graduated, it changes everything.
When I left, I was gonna try to relate to you on that. Is that being at my alma mater, it means the world.
There's a different level of sentiment there. It just means a little bit more when you're back in the place that you played. I was talking to a college coach yesterday who's back at his alma mater coaching, and he said the same thing. He's like, it's really neat to be back, where I played. It does mean just a little bit more than what it would if I was at some other school that I didn't play at.
Makes all sense in the world. Like, I mean, I'm at Dayton Christian, but I can guarantee you I know what's going on in Miamisburg's games, and I'm rooting for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want Miamisburg to do well. So a little bit about high school. I'm staying on the high school baseball bandwagon. How will the divisions change what you do in your approach to the spring, or will it?
That's going to be interesting. Just a lot more to keep track of in terms of who's leading in each division. Honestly, it's a lot more work for Dylan Hefflinger, who does all the he does all the high school the team rankings, and a lot of the high school team coverage that we do in the spring is carried by Dylan. He does a lot of that. So his workload might increase a little bit, just the headaches of trying to keep 7 divisions organized.
I emailed Dylan a lot.
Yeah. He does a fantastic job covering the spring season. So, yeah, from on my side of things, we'll obviously do the podcast again in the spring, making sure that we're covering teams and providing some an extra level of coverage there. I think that's a great way for us to just stay plugged in.
I enjoyed it.
Provide the best coverage we can. I've learned a ton the last 12 months just about smaller division baseball and high school ball, like Division III, Division IV ball last year. I just didn't know a ton of those teams. I had no exposure to them. But doing that podcast, talking with Dylan, talking with coaches around the state, it's great baseball, man. We're blessed with great baseball in the state of Ohio. So excited to see what 25 looks like.
Oh, for sure. I'm excited to see the sectionals. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
With us being Division 6.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll have to go through Troy Christian and Judah, right? So that'll be fun. But yeah, no.
Division 1, I think they're doing a North region, a Columbus region, Southwest region, and then they're doing a combined region of Columbus and Cincinnati.
Okay.
So there'll be, I think it's Cleveland, basically Northern Ohio, Central Ohio, Southwest Ohio, and then a combined Central and Southwest Ohio regional.
I'm hoping we get more info before we get to the state clinic, which I think is the end of January.
Right.
Obviously ABCA will go to that first, but the state clinic I think this year is like the 30th of January, so I'm hoping we have more information by then. Because I'm pretty excited about our roster, bringing back everybody but Scanlon.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. There's some schools like in different divisions that I think change the landscape of those divisions, and it'll be interesting to see who does what and how those powers shake out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a change for us at Fairmont. I mean, we stayed, D1. It's the same as for you. And you say you're excited bringing back your roster. I think I just lost like
everyone,
90% everyone on our roster. Graduated. No, I mean we graduated 13, and 8 of those guys put forth a lot of innings for us. So it's going to be, it's as much as the year's changing. Yeah, it's changing a lot. Oh wow.
So how do you attack that going into the next year when you graduate 17?
It's a program. It's process. It's not dependent on individual players. The way that we've tried to build it, we play a style of baseball. We don't rely on one player. So I think it's just about getting guys experience early, making sure guys are exposed to it. We tried over the last couple of years to prepare for it, making sure the right guys were up and getting some experience here and there. we knew it was coming. So try to prepare the best you can, get guys exposure early, and make sure that everyone's playing the same kind of baseball. And we have a clear understanding of how do we win baseball games, right? What does it take for us to win a baseball game? And let's go do that.
I think it's great. And you kind of have that we culture when you speak about Mason, which is I try to do the same thing. Bringing Mason back into the conversation, tell us a little bit about that year, just last year, and how it led up to where you guys ended up. And then, if you could, just kind of give us a backdrop on the state tournament, state championship game.
The year before, we lost to Elder in the regional semi, I believe, or maybe it was the district final, because we just couldn't scrap together runs and play fundamental short game well enough, and they play it really well. I mean, that's what Elder and Mark Thompson are known for, is playing super fundamental baseball. So we kind of went to the drawing board and said, okay, what do we want our offense to look like? How do we score when we're not hitting? How do we make sure that this team understands that not all runs are going to come from home runs and doubles? And we kind of revamped our offense the whole off season. It was a lot of short game work. We have really talented players, which helps because a lot of the doubles, extra base hits, that stuff's going to come no matter what. So we just had to make sure that these really talented players also knew how to play short game baseball. And that was from the first game of the season until the end of the season. That was our goal, was I want to play the first game and every game that we play just like we're playing the state title. Where it only takes one, like we're playing the tournament. It only takes one game and you're out. Can we score first and get that momentum? Can we race to 4? Can we race to 7? And play that way. Like, we're going to play a pressure style of offense until we have a certain lead, and then we'll take the reins off. So through the course of the year, that was really all we were trying to do, was make sure that we were playing the same style of baseball against, one of the lesser teams in our conference that we were going to play against Moeller in the regional final. We wanted the look of the game to be the same in terms of how we were playing it. So that was our focus, and then it worked out in a lot of ways in the regular season. We finished 17-1 in the GMC, won our 6th GMC title in a row, and then we went on to the playoffs, and we had some great arms. That we had Jake Hanley's the best player in Mason history on the roster, which certainly helps. We had Michael Belo, who just has an invisible fastball and a great off-speed offering. He was the one that no-hit Moeller in the regional final.
I was about to mention it.
It was an unbelievable performance.
Game.
We had good game plans against those guys. We do a lot of prep work, especially in the tournament, just getting ready for teams and making sure we know how to pitch everyone in the order. And we felt like we had a strong game plan, but that's nothing if the guy doesn't go out and execute it. And Mike did a great job executing that game. And then through the rest of the tournament, we knew that Perrysburg was going to have a good arm. The Hubbard kid that's at Toledo, he really kept us at bay. It ended up being just one big swing from Jake Hanley that won that game, and sometimes you just need that from your guy. You need your guy to go be your guy.
Yeah.
And in that moment he was. And then against Twinsburg in the state final, we were facing Lucas Tenner, who, it's 83 to 85 with a ton of sink, and then he's got this really big loopy breaking ball that he was using to set up and make his fastball look a little bit harder. And we had some timing stuff. We watched like 4 or 5 of his games leading into that game to get his timing on the mound from a base running standpoint. So I think we stole like 5 bases in the first couple innings. We kind of had him down there, and then once we figured out what he was trying to do with the contrast of speed with his pitches, it was just about making sure guys had a great plan for that, and eventually we got to him. That was a really fun Final Four couple of games there.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. It was great to see, so yeah, that's something that we all dream of, right? That state title.
Yeah, that
run.
was wild, man. I'm 10 years at the same school, and Kurt longer. Kurt's been there for 20-something years. If you combine all of his, he's taught there since he got out of college, and then he's coached basketball and baseball and all these other sports, but he's been with the baseball program for 20-plus years. To finally get that was pretty special for him.
Yeah, so I guess I'll bring it back to us. Tell us what's going on at Alpha, what's next there, and we've talked a lot about PBR, but I don't want to sleep on Alpha a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, I appreciate that. It's, we added a weight room. We took over, we got a unit next to ours that was a weight room, but it wasn't Alpha. It was a different company. They went out of business, so we took over that space, revamped it so that we can do weight training in the facility now, which has been just a massive addition for our players. We've got Dr. Nick Rolfs, who's a chiropractor for the Reds. He runs Cincinnati Sport and Spine. He's actually in-house also, so he provides like our treatment and stuff to our guys that when they're needing manual work or cupping, things like that, any kind of adjustments from a chiropractor standpoint as well. He runs all that, which has been great to have that in-house. It's been a fun off season. We kind of changed a little bit of how we structure the hitting program. We reduced the size. We actually limited our groups a little bit more than we have in the past, just to try to get guys better reps and better work. And we've seen a bunch of benefits from that. So it's been good. Yeah, the pitching side is a freaking wagon. I mean, Greg Williams does a great job on that side of things. We got a new force mound in this past year, which is, measures the ground force. It's the entire mound is a force plate, and we've seen some guys make some big jumps just from understanding how to use the ground a little bit better and being able to track that and show them like, hey, look, you're really slow, or like you don't use the ground well at all. Like let's do a certain progression of med balls over the next couple of weeks and see how this number changes, and then all of a sudden guys are unlocking 3 to 5 miles per hour, and it's like, okay, there's some gains to be made from that. So that's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, I love the ground force stuff. When I went out to the farm with Joey Kuna, he has the ground plate that he hits on, and watching all his computer system set up, it was so cool.
Hitting is such an interesting side of that, right? Because you have like Joey Cunha and 108, like a bunch of D-cell, like ground force, and then you got Teacher Man like way over here. So you got this like far left and far right, and then there's ocean in between, and you're just trying to figure out, okay, where does this kid lie? Where does his best swing on this scale of swing beliefs? That's been a fun evolution over the last 10 years of trying to figure out how to teach within that scale and understand which guy needs what.
Yeah, understand that not everybody's the same.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you try to, not to leak back into PBR, but as you being the state director and being able to see a lot of the hitters in the state, do you sometimes let your judgment kind of come into where you're at
of their swing?
Yeah,
like watching them swing.
With styles,
So I personally don't fall on either side. I'm somewhere in the middle. So when I teach, I know guys need some of these fields at times to get them farther away from this side, or some guys need this field, or maybe it's the opposite, right? They're already over there and they need to stay there.
Yeah.
So I'm making sure that they stay there. I try not to, let that happen. But there's certain things, like you see a guy's hands behind, and
I think it's obvious that you see it for what it is, right? Like every swing is different. I mean, every hitter is different. So
a little bit about, I mean, you're obviously talking about guys and swings and stuff. So obviously you know our program fairly well.
Yeah.
I would love to have any opinion you have on a couple of our guys.
Well, we talked about Noah Bramble a couple days ago, and last week, maybe the week before.
Yeah.
That kid, good player, man.
Yeah.
I like his swing a lot. I like what you guys do about just making sure kids know like where they're at, and you're pushing them as hard as you can to make those jumps. I think that's from a facility side, like the best that they can hope for is that they've got guys in their corner that are going to be honest and push them. I like that you guys track everything and you make it competitive.
yeah.
It's awesome, dude. It's a good culture.
Brought up the conferences, state conference, ABCA. Something that I've been seeing that's becoming more popular in the baseball community is hat swaps. So we had a Sling and Seeds hat made for you. It's one of two, actually one of three. My son has one, but one of three. And
original. Thank you very much. I brought a
Absolutely.
couple for you boys. I don't know which ones you want, but
Awesome.
there's a few.
We're glad. No.
Outstanding.
We're
Rep
glad.
the PBR logo a little bit for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For
We
sure.
love working with you guys, the relationship that we've had with you guys so far. And for me being kind of a new guy, I know that not a lot of you guys know who I am, but being able to meet you guys and get to know PBR for what it is from the outside looking in, it's great, and it's a healthy relationship. And that brings us to the end. That's all the time that we have for today. Kyle, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on with us.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and I'm excited for you to be back in the facility on February 17th for our
Heck yeah,
Scout
man.
Day.
You hear it.
Yeah.
You heard it there first.
I'll hear the music from the parking lot, I'm sure. I love it.
We like to get excited in here. Sorry.
It's awesome.
But no, to see more of this stuff, you guys can be on Spotify and YouTube. And then now we are on Apple. It is official. We're officially on Apple now. And then keep an eye out on Facebook and Instagram for some of the updates. Now that we're going to 2 episodes a week, and we appreciate you being the first guy for the double episodes for the holiday season. So, all right, guys,
Thanks, fellas.
that's a wrap.
I appreciate
That's a
you
wrap.
coming on.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time. Slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.